This is Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, a podcast and radio program presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan. Most any contemporary musical style can trace its roots back to the blues. Time Signatures explores the blues and its musical connections with captivating interviews, lively discussions, and news from the world of the blues.
You know I'm crying, baby, driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
And now, here he is, your host, Jim Ervin.
Baby, I'm home.
Yeah, you know, I really am home. I'm recording from home once again. Welcome to Time Signatures. I'm your host, Jim Ervin. And along with me today, we actually had him stick around for another round here. It's blues pianist Ben Levin. And Ben is from the Cincinnati area. Ben's story has been nothing short of incredible. And as I said to him in our first episode, I've only recently become aware of who he is. And I've got to tell you, if you get a chance to listen to Ben Levin, you really need to spend the time. And because we didn't do it on the first episode, Ben, I want to kick right off with where can people find your music, your tour information, all the information that they can find about you?
Yeah, thanks again for having me on. My website is benlevinpiano.com, and I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and all my CDs are available from my website, but you can also stream them from Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, all those services.
And I got to tell you, that's how I got a taste of your music. A friend of mine was telling me about you. I'm one of those people, when somebody gives me a name, I want to spend the time, I want to listen to them. The lady that turned me on to your music was our founding president. Her name is Bonnie Queen B. Stebbins. She started the Capital Area Blues Society up here almost 30 years ago. And so when she throws a name at me, I pay attention a little bit because she knows what she's talking about. Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah. And one way or the other, if we can't get you up here, we will have to come down there and catch one of your shows. I really wanted to come down and get an opportunity to meet you and also to listen to your music for a while. You know, part of the issue is being 5 hours away from Cincinnati. It's a haul. And
so are you outside of Detroit, Jim?
I'm actually in the Lansing area.
Oh, so Lansing, gotcha.
Right dead center. If you take your hand up, I'm right dead center of your palm. So a little bit south of center. But
have you ever seen? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I'm just gonna ask if you've ever seen the guitarist George Bedard play. I know he's up in that area.
I have not.
Okay, he's a wonderful guitar player. He's come down to Cincinnati for a lot of the blues fests. I can't remember if he's in the Detroit or Lansing area, but
okay,
yeah, he's definitely worth checking out.
So somebody's gonna reach up and slap me in the back of the head locally here because I didn't know the name. You can watch.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Well,
I could have it wrong where he's from. I know Michigan's a big state.
Well, it seems like
I can't remember.
Michigan has got a really good handful of blues artists. I mean, we've got Thornetta Davis, who I just got to meet a few weeks ago. We've got Larry. There's just a whole plethora of blues artists in this area that are absolutely incredible. And again, they're very approachable. They're very friendly. They're a lot of fun to see when they perform, and makes it a pleasure to be from this area. Absolutely. And of course, it looks like the Cincinnati area is not wanting for artists down there in the blues genre either.
Yeah. There's a lot of great local musicians, and there's a lot of wonderful history here. I've always been fascinated with King Records. That was our local label from about the mid 40s through the early 70s. Recorded a lot of started with country, but then got into blues, and artists like Old Moose Jackson, great jump blues, Tiny Bradshaw. And then you got more R&B stuff with Hank Ballard and the Midnighters, and then the heavy blues with Freddie King. Even Albert King had some recordings here. And of course, most famously is James Brown. And then there was a lot of heavy blues in the city. There was a guitar player. His name was Albert Washington, who just had a haunting voice. I mean, he sang at such a high pitch and timbre. I mean, it's very intense. And then there's a guy, H. Bomb Ferguson, and I mentioned earlier Big Joe Duskin. So a lot of history, and there still are a lot of great musicians working in the city today.
Now, I have to turn focus here for just a minute, because you really were catching fire in the late 20-teens, I guess you call them. And then COVID hit in 2020. What did that do for your trajectory? Did it slow you down? Did it just cause you to go a different direction and grow some more experimentally? Or what did you do during that period?
That was really, really tough for me, Jim, because like you said, I was on a trajectory, and I felt things were starting to take off. Different artists were reaching out to me to collaborate. And I was supposed to do some work in Phoenix with Bob Corritor. And then I had other musicians reach out to me, was staying busy in Cincinnati, and then everything's just dead halt. And that was tough. And, you know, I wish I had been more productive with that time. But, you know, a lot of the time I just sat around very frustrated. And then the one thing that saved my sanity from being stuck at home for so long was when my father and I started doing live streams on Facebook. And we, you know, just the two of us, just me on the upright piano and him with the guitar and little amp. And it's like, okay, you know, obviously this isn't a gig, but we're playing together, and we're at least able to say hello to all the fans that we miss. And we did different themes for some of the shows. Like one time we said, okay, let's see if we can do an hour of all original music.
Sure.
And then, you know, there's a great tradition in blues, as you know, double entendre, sort of risque stuff. So one time I said, okay, let's just do a full, yeah, right. I said, let's just do a full hour of this stuff for fun. And so, you know, like I said, that saved me. And when we were finally able to get out and gig again outside in the summer, when it felt safe, okay, you know,
Sure.
we weren't vaccinated yet, but, you know, we can do things outdoors. But it was tough. And then my father caught COVID. The two of us did, actually, in November of 2020. And, you know, I was sick, really sick for a few days. And I was surprised how sick it had made me. My father, he just kept getting sicker and sicker at the house. And we had to call an ambulance for him one night. And he was in the hospital for a day before he was put into the ICU on a ventilator.
Oh, man.
So he was on a ventilator for about 2 weeks. And of course, the music came to a halt once again. And when he came out of his coma, before he could even walk again, he had to do weeks of physical therapy to gain his strength back.
Yep.
He's talking about, okay, Ben, what are we going to do for the next album? And so
that had to feel good, right?
Yeah. And so I would visit him. Of course, my mother, they only allowed one visitor at a time. So when he first came out, my mom was with him constantly. And then when I was able to go see him, we'd sit and listen to music, and he'd talk about, hey, I think I have an idea for a song. And he's just laid up in bed all day recovering. And that was his saving grace was, okay, you know, the creativity. What are we going to do next?
Yeah.
And so when he was strong enough, I think we went back in the studio. That must have been April of 2021. We went back in to record, or maybe early May. And some of those ideas that he came up with initially in the hospital, we put to record. So that album, Still Here, will always be near and dear to my heart, because, you know, when my father came out of his coma, you know, I can't walk, I can't feed myself. My mother's mantra to him, the reminder was, you know, hey, Aaron, you're still here. And that's the most important thing. And so, you know, I have a very tight-knit family, and that was an extremely difficult time for us, but we came out of it and stronger than ever. And to still be able to make music with my father, I'll never take that for granted again, you know?
That is, I got to admit, I mean, I'm very much a family person.
Yeah,
having just lost my mom last year, it was really tough.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But
I'm sorry to hear that.
to know that out of all those stories, all those bad stories that came out of COVID, you were able to come back with a good story and continue to be able to make music with your father. And I just I got to tell you, I know that's a blessing to you. I know that's a wonderful feeling. And I have to ask, you know, now that we're on the backside of COVID and things are moving again, do you feel like you're getting back on track? Are you still playing, still doing gigs with your dad? What's going on?
Yeah. I'm not working with him as much as I used to. You know, he can't really get out and play as much as I do. I'm playing 4, sometimes 5 times a week, and you know, he wants to spend time with my mom and of course with my brother too. But we're still playing together pretty regularly. This week he's going to be with me on a few gigs, and we're going to travel out of town this weekend. Saturday we're going to drive out to Wheeling, West Virginia for a festival. We're going to play as a duo. So, you know, even though, like I said, I'm working with different artists now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, you know, my collaboration with Lil Jimmy Reed. We put out an album together. But hey,
you beat me to the punch.
Yeah, but you know, even that project.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, even that project. My father's on rhythm guitar, and a few of those original songs that I wrote for Jimmy, my father co-wrote with me. So everything I'm doing, he's still right there.
Very cool. Now we're going to talk about Lil Jimmy Reed here in a minute. Mm-hmm. But you said you're going to be in Wheeling at the Blues Fest this weekend?
That's right. That's right.
So make sure that you take time and say hi to Matthias, because he's going to be there as well. I was looking at his tour dates, and he's going to be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know who all's going to be there, but Matthias will be.
Yeah. And I was going to say, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's a fellow Pine Top alumni. So we have that connection.
Okay. That is really cool. You know, I got to be honest with you. I wish I could be there.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. I know Tony Holiday is going to be there, because the next night I'll be hosting him in Cincinnati. We're going to do a gig together Sunday this area. So.
Yeah. And you're just a hop, skip, and a jump from Wheeling, aren't you?
Yeah. I think maybe 3.5 hour drive. So not too bad.
So I kind of want to turn the page a little bit and talk about your collaboration with Lil Jimmy Reed. I would love to hear the backstory on how this came to be and how you met him.
Yeah, Jim. So I love to tell people our story, how we met, because, you know, we met on Facebook and I discovered it. Yeah, it's really kind of nuts, but I discovered his music and I was completely knocked off my feet. You know, he's such a powerful guitar player, harmonica player, and a vocalist.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the first video I saw him doing was he was doing Coochie Coochie Man. And
okay.
I'm like, wow, you know, this guy is the real deal. So I found out, wow, he's on Facebook and he's active. So I sent him a message, and I connected with Lil Jimmy and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I connected with him in February of 2020, and I had plans to bring him to Cincinnati in May of 2020. So of course that did not happen. But him and I hit it off. We talked on the phone, and I asked him, "Hey, have you ever been to Cincinnati? Have you ever played here?" He says, "No." And I said, "Well, would you be interested in coming up here?" And he said, "Yeah, if you got a band that can back me up, and let's do it." So of course we had to postpone that. And I finally got Jimmy up here in December of 2021. We played a couple of shows, and he's just a trip. He's a wonderful guy, and it's hard to describe the feeling that you get being on stage with someone who's playing blues like that. Is really hard to find today.
Oh, yeah.
Because listening to Jimmy just transports you right back to the late 50s and into the 60s. Of course, he can play Jimmy Reed songs better than anyone else on earth today. But the cool thing about Jimmy too is he's got this whole other side of him. He can play guitar like Magic Slim, or I don't know. One of his big influences is Little Milton. So he's got all this great stuff. So we did a recording session when he came here, and one of the tunes that we did was called "I've Been Drinking Muddy Water," and that was on. That was on my release, "Take Your Time," and that tune ended up being picked up by SiriusXM's Bluesville. It was getting a lot of airplay, and we said, okay, well, people are really digging Little Jimmy. Let's do a whole project. So we brought him back up here in December 2022, and we recorded a full-length album and released it on NOLA Blue Records. All my projects are with BizTone. They've been a wonderful label for me, but I wanted to connect Jimmy with his own team. So we did this record under his name, and I produced it, and I played piano, and then co-wrote some of the songs. And it's been great. We've been traveling a little bit this summer promoting it. We played out in Pennsylvania at the Billtown Blues Festival. We played the Cincinnati Blues Festival in Columbus. And then next month, we're getting ready to go to Chicago. We're going to play Lil Jimmy Reed's first gig in Chicago at Rose's Lounge. So I'm really excited.
Wow. He's never been there.
He's never been all these years.
Wow.
So I'm really excited about that. And then in October, we'll be at Ground Zero in Biloxi, Mississippi. At the Crescent City Jazz Festival in New Orleans. And then something really special is Lil Jimmy's originally from Baton Rouge. So we set up a gig. It's his first show, I believe, since the pandemic in Baton Rouge, in his hometown. And that's the title track to the album, Back to Baton Rouge, because he resides in Alabama now. And so, of course, that town is very near and dear to his heart. So really a special thing.
I'm sitting here just in awe listening to your story, because you've got the teacher that's helping the student, and all of a sudden the student is stepping in and helping the teacher. And, Little Jimmy Reed he's another one of those old school blues guys that, you don't see very often.
Yeah.
They're starting to go by the wayside and pass from the scene. And it's always exciting to me when I get to hear somebody like, give you a good example. I got to hear John Primer
I love
earlier
John
this year.
Primer.
He came into town. I'm also a photographer.
Oh, cool.
And he came to Napoleon, to the best little blues club in 3 states. Okay. And it's called the Blues Stage Jam. And the guy that owns it, his name is TC, and he brought John in, and, I was awestruck because this is another guy who played for Muddy Waters. He was his band leader for like 13 years and lead guitarist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got to sit like 10 feet off the stage from him and just shoot. And at the beginning of the shoot, when he started doing the concert, he looked right at me and we made eye contact. I went, oh man.
Oh man.
I love that photo. But he put on a show for, man, a good hour and a half.
Yeah.
And Steve Bell was playing harp for him.
Oh yeah.
Don't ask me the other two. I can't think of the other two band members. I'm sorry. Steve Bell blew my mind because he had a belt with all these harps around it. And he could change keys. He could, pull a harp out of the belt for just about anything.
Yes.
But
Steve's
it was
really cool.
It was such a cool experience to be able to see this guy and hear his music. And he was just as personal as you please. I mean, I actually helped his band unload their equipment because they were running late.
Oh, nice.
And when I shot the photos, I hurried up and sent them to his wife because he told me, he said, yeah, my wife takes care of all that. So I reached out to her and she replied to me right away. And she's like, oh, I would really appreciate that. So he is actually going to be on an episode here, hopefully in the not so distant future, but between the Blues Awards down in Memphis and of course the summer season, with everybody doing their touring and everything, he's just been very busy.
Oh,
so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to talking to him though.
Yeah, John's another one of those guys that has that old school thing that's getting harder and harder to find. Sir. And that's another person I would love to play with someday. I've met John a couple of times. And I actually, one of his, he's put out a few albums with Bob Corritore, and Bob hired me. I overdubbed piano on one of their records, so I'm on the CD.
Oh wow!
But I wasn't in the room with them recording it. I did it after the fact. So yeah, I hope I get a chance to play with John in person someday.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. I need to ask you a question. Are you familiar with any of Larry McRae's band?
I know the name. I know my
Jim Alfredson.
What does he play?
He plays keys.
Okay, no,
he plays keys.
I don't know Jim.
I need to connect you two because I think that you would both enjoy talking to each other. He actually played with a band in town here called the Root Doctor Band for several years.
Okay.
And he was approached initially by Larry to tour with him right after he got the gig playing with the Root Doctor Band.
Oh, wow.
So fast forward now 20 some years, and now he's touring all over the place with them. They just, as I said, they went to Romania. They've been all over the place. They were down in Memphis for the award show. And that was when Thornetta got the Blues Female of the Year award.
Yeah.
John got an award down there for that event. And I mean, I'm really honored to be able to hang with some of these people around here because we've got some incredible talent in the Lansing and the Central Michigan area, and they're just a lot of fun. But
yeah,
Ben, as we get close to the close here, I want to ask you, clearly you're among the brightest and best in the new generation of blues musicians. I want to know how you plan to take up the torch and help keep the blues alive for the next generation to follow.
The best way that I can think of continuing this tradition is doing the same thing that elders have done for me. So just encouraging the next generation. And, I'll be really excited when a young piano player comes up to me and asks me for advice or lessons, because that'll be a full circle moment for me.
Sure.
And
my guest has been Ben Levin on Time Signatures. We have really enjoyed the conversation with you, Ben. Excited to see what you're going to be doing in the future. But before we wrap up, I want to have you put your information out there again. Where can we find more information on you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you so much, Jim. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. So
Thank
my
you.
website is benlevinpiano.com. That's Ben Levin piano. And I'm also on Facebook under Ben Levin Piano and Instagram. So you can find all my information on there. And as I said, my CDs are available from my website, but you can also stream my music from all the major services.
Ben Levin, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you folks for listening. We look forward to talking to you again as we help keep the blues alive.
This has been Time Signatures with Jim Ervin, presented by the Capital Area Blues Society in Lansing, Michigan. For more information on cabs, visit capitalareablues.org. You can find this episode and past episodes at lccconnect.org. The Time Signatures theme song, Michigan Roads, is used by permission and was written by Root Doctor, featuring Freddie Cunningham.
You know I'm trying, baby, driving up and down these Michigan roads, yeah.
Until next time, keep on keeping the blues alive.